Benjamin Franklin once said, "The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." The fact is, quality matters. Join us as we make quality fun, interesting, and accessible to companies of all levels. Quality Matters is a must-listen for all things quality. Listen in, ask questions, and get back to doing what matters most. Quality Matters, brought to you by Texas Quality Assurance, where quality management gets simplified.
All right, so apparently I forgot to uncheck the button to automatically play our podcast intro. So, hey, you get the podcast intro there, but I guess, it's all fair. It's the same backdrop we use here for the podcast anyways. All right, but for anyone watching that maybe isn't familiar with the Quality Matters podcast, I'm Kyle Chambers, and this Caleb Adcock.
Hello.
And we are with Texas Quality Assurance. And Texas Quality Assurance, we have a software. Really, this was the genesis of the business over 10 years ago now. And but TQA Cloud is a quality management software that's really designed and developed for small business. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But I know that not everyone is ready to jump into QMS software. You probably want to learn a little bit more about document control. What really are the foundations and fundamentals of it? Can you do it without a software? Like, maybe what does that look like? And, can you do it with a software? What's that look like? What are the differences? How's this going to work out for you? And really, what's the best for your business? But Caleb, I know you've seen some of the data migrations and stuff we've done when we've brought people on to the QMS. I mean, what are some of the, I guess, benefits of a document control software versus not? And can folks do it without a software?
You definitely can. I mean, people have been doing it for, as long as word processors have been a thing. It's a lot more work. We definitely, the biggest thing we run into is, let's say let's say you send an email out to, a group of 3 people saying, "Hey, I need this." You're going to get potentially 3 copies of what you requested back, and they're all going to be different. And then, so, that's.
And now you were a CWI in a past life, and I don't imagine you ever saw an instance where folks had the wrong copy of their procedure at their table, did they?
Nope, never did. Always looking for it though.
No one ever prints those things out and stuffs it in the toolbox, and 5 years later it's the same Rev 1, even though we're on 7 now.
Well, and the weird thing is they're like protective of it. They're like, "I like this revision."
Yes.
Like it's something they're fond of. Like, no.
Yeah, I ran into that too. Oddly enough, it was like the employee handbook of a guy that had been there forever, and we'd updated the employee handbook, and I was like, "I need to take your old one back." And like, he didn't want to give over the handbook, but I guess I get it, because like it had been in the same spot in his toolbox for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of weird. But the point is, like, people, man, they hold on to that printed stuff, and it's hard to prove like what's the latest, greatest version of the document.
Yeah. Or, it's just out of like pure habit that we go to the file location on our desktop. I was just guilty of this myself. I found out the other day I had some offline video files, and, I had 2 separate libraries, especially when you change computers or something like that. You think you've got the copies, and you put it on the drive, and you get there and you're like, wait, and then you got this old copy. Yeah.
Yeah. I run into this thing. Actually, I was dealing with it just before we got on here, because, I'm going to open up a little screen share, and we'll kind of talk about ways that people do file folders and manual systems. And there was, we took this laptop with us on vacation. And so my son worked on some school paper he's doing one of these dual credit classes, and he had to write a research paper over Thanksgiving, and it was saved there in the downloads folder. And I was like, okay, well, I need to move this over to my documents. Then I'm like, well, crap, I've got like 4 my documents folders, and they're all OneDrive, so they're all backed up. But I'm like, which one do I need to put it in? I'll remember to find,
Yeah.
And it's a mess.
Well, and that brings up another good point, is now with all of the OneDrive and the cloud servers and stuff like that, like I've noticed that Windows tends to want to automatically select OneDrive for some stuff. And so it even says my desktop, and you may be saving it to, my desktop or another location, not even realize it. And then go, one day and you don't even know that you're working on a different version or something like that. So it's easy for even us to do. Very easy.
And I mean, look, a lot of what we do is built on SharePoint. And so I've done a little bit of SharePoint consulting from time to time. And so there's a oil and gas company in Houston. I'll just leave it there. So arrow sit down. But one of these larger oil and gas shops that they basically created a new SharePoint site for each project. And it was pretty cool. Like they get a new site for each project, and then they populate all of their data and documents in there. And that sounds well and good until you run into about 1,000 plus SharePoint sites and servers scattered everywhere. And it's just like, And so what the solution I was trying to walk them towards was a unified central document control repository, whether we're talking about procedures, we're talking about records, whatever. We just want a central spot there.
Yeah.
In the end, it's inner business politics, didn't get the work, but it was kind of interesting to look at. But you run into the same type of stuff even on small businesses. Like, how many of our customers have they've got their own company OneDrive, and that company OneDrive just happens to be like the owner's OneDrive account that he shared with his people.
Yeah.
And you ever seen any of these like organized?
No, well, they call it organized.
But it's so hard to find stuff. It's like subfolder and subfolder and subfolder and subfolder. And you just go a little crazy. And then some folks don't realize because they just see OneDrive. So I've seen this happen. They see OneDrive and like, oh, well, I'll just put it in OneDrive. And they put it in their OneDrive. You got all sorts of funny stuff. So there's lots of ways people do it. But I guess I'll kind of start, because obviously we're going to get to talking about the software. We're going to get to talking about TQA Cloud. But let's kind of go into maybe like, what do you do if you don't have a software? What was the document control solution 20 years ago? You're looking at it. It's network file share. Now, network file share solves a lot of the problems we talked about. There's just one place to go. You got your L drive, your Z drive, your K drive, whatever drive it is. Right now, I'm working from the downloads folder, but you get the idea. But typically, what I wind up seeing is we'll have, maybe we'll break it down by tiers of document hierarchy. Oftentimes, we'll break it down by department. So we'll have an all, if I can type here, all company folder. And that's where then we'll put a copy of manual. And we're going to have manuals and policies. Oh, but some manuals are product manuals. So we're going to put another folder for that. Product manual. Okay. Cool. Now I'm going to go into my manuals and policies. Now I'm going to have a whole other series of folders. Here is going to be current PDF. Then we're going to have current working version. Now you may organize these things a little different. Current working version. We're going to have archived versions. Cool. And so now we just go here. And sometimes maybe the company does it the opposite way, and we have all of our PDFs, and then we break down into subfolders. But inevitably, we play the folder game.
Yep.
It's A, easy to put stuff in the wrong place. B, it's kind of confusing. Like, where do I go?
Don't forget to make a copy of the base folder and put it in one of the subfolders. So you have that tree.
Yeah, and then, you just do that little mistake there.
Shoot.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you're probably arguing and saying, well, hey, Kyle, we can put security restrictions on those folders. And you can. And I used to do it. I was a sysadmin in a previous life. This was like where my job started, back in the 2000s. Man, that's so weird. Yeah, all right. So total, breaking train of thought. But like, I remember years ago thinking, like, what are we going to call this decade? We're going to call it the aughts, the early, the whatever. And I think 2000s is what I've finally agreed on. A quarter century later. Shit, that's old. Okay.
I need to store that in my brain. I still hear 2000s. I think of like everything that's happened so far in the 2000s. I haven't broken it up into decades yet.
Okay. Yeah, I can't go down that trail of thought. If we were on the podcast, we'd have a little bit of fun there, but we need to talk about this. Okay. But no, so you wind up with this problem of we've got just subfolder nightmare. And yes, you can put security controls on those folders. You can do like the NTFS security on it. And you've got to think out all of the groups you want to have in advance. How are you going to put them in there? I mean, it's a lot of work. Realistically, just putting a document control system in place, creating your logs, your NTFS security, all these type of things, you're probably looking at 30 hours of work, honestly, because you're going to have little bugs. You're going to change it and move it around a little bit. That's a lot of effort. But you know, I guess it works. I don't know, Caleb, what's your thoughts here? Huh?
Then you have to have a hall monitor that constantly watches it and looks for things that are out of place. And
Yep. And then that's part of when you run into these situations, which as a former sysadmin, the stuff makes me sick when I see it. They pass the laptop from the old guy to the new guy. They don't create a new account. They change the name on the user account and then just pass it off to the new guy.
Yeah.
I think you were dealing with an issue with this just yesterday. And so now he's trying to log in with security for someone that's not him, but he's told he has to log in that way. And it's like, but these things happen when you base everything on that individual user's security and, oh man, he has to have access to these things.
Yeah.
So you're going to make your IT guy's life easy as well if you've got a software in place. But I don't know. Maybe you can't afford the QMS software. Maybe it's too expensive. What do you think? You think TQA Cloud? Think it's too expensive for folks? Maybe
No.
for like a one-man shop and you're broke and, you know, I was there for a long time. $100 a month can be a lot, but that's where we start. It's $100 a month. All right.
Yeah.
So knowing that, hey, it's pretty cheap, pretty easy. We can get away from these problems. Let's actually take a look at the software. All right, I'll add this back in. Let's see. Maybe I'll change the layout here a little bit. Oh no, don't like that. Sorry, y'all. Not the best at the webinar stuff. We're more of, you know, quality management software folks. All right, cool. So we've got the software here. As you see, everything we're working with, guys, this is Office 365. That's it. So really cool thing here. Again, the IT guy coming out in me. This makes user adoption so much easier. I was on a phone call with a customer just yesterday, and they unexpectedly lost their quality manager right before their audit. So things got a little chaotic for a little while. But I was talking to one of their directors, and I was asking him, like, you know, what's the hesitancy to people jumping in here? And he's like, oh, the last guy just did everything. They never had to get in there for it. And I was like, oh, you just need to tell them to log in. He's like, I did. He said, you know, it's funny. They started getting all nervous. Man, I don't want to have to learn something new. I don't want to have to get in there. And he pulled my line on him. He's like, it's Office 365. It's Word. It's Excel. It's SharePoint. It's all the stuff you're used to.
Yeah.
In any case, makes user adoption easy. So you'll see here that we've got kind of a couple ways to navigate, and we're coming out with a new app in the new year, all sorts of new cool stuff in it, but we'll talk about that another day. But we can go to document control. So let's take here, I'll just work from the left-hand navigation on it. We always got a couple ways to get there. And we've got various document libraries in here. These are all standard from the get-go. From policies and manuals, obviously we're going to put like a copy of our quality policy in there. Our safety manual, our QHSE manual. Maybe we've got a confidentiality policy or conflict materials policy, all these different type things. This is your repository for those top level documents. Then we've got our forms documents. These are going to be like, well, let's see what we've got in here. This is a demo site. We don't necessarily do the best job keeping our demo site populated. Tend to stay busy working on customer parts. Or customer systems. But, you know, we can have a number of different forms in here. Maybe we've got form we're using for a checklist, for calibration, or contract renewal, whatever it might be. So these are your forms, your documents. Then we move on to technical docs. If we're looking at technical docs, you know, maybe we're talking about like your weld specifications. You know, we were talking about welding earlier. Maybe this is where you're going to have you know, I used to work for a turbine shop, and we had what we called recipes for our heat treat. You know, this is where we stored it. Job descriptions, work instructions, external documents. Look, a lot of folks have to maintain compliance to various standards, right? So if you maintain compliance to all these different standards, maybe you've got 3 different monograms and you've got an art, and a U stamp. Well, okay. You've got a lot of external documents you have to keep track of, and you got to make sure you know what to go check for a new version on, because these things get updated. Happened recently with API Q1. We've still got a lot of folks going through fun trying to get used to the 10th edition. Anyways, that's where you'd store it all. Process, procedures, drawings, inspection forms, you name it. But they all have the same basic controls in place. So maybe we'll take a look at the policies and manuals library. So, Caleb, I can jump in kind of on my standard spiel, but I'm going to guess folks listening to this may have already heard some of my spiels before. Like, what to you makes the document control here better than here? I mean, other than it's prettier, like, why am I going to use this library? Doesn't it do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought on that is version history. Being able to see and approve documents. You don't get document approval that I'm aware, like, very easily with the old version, just the file format.
Yeah, that runs up being a real manual process. You have to sit down across from the manager, and oftentimes they get physical signatures on them.
Yeah.
Well, this is especially talking about physical signatures. This is especially awesome if you're like a medical device company or some of the regulatory environment, and you've got to have a digital signature on it. What they mean by that digital signature is basically what we're looking at here. Look, I can see on this date, 9/5/2024, Kyle Chambers. Hey, I know that guy. He approved this document. Now, the only way this can be done is logging in with my account. That's it. All right. So,
yeah, there's no forging that signature,
Nope.
unless you got bigger problems where user security has been compromised or something like that. But in that case, signatures aren't your problem then.
Man, when I was this was when I was a QHSE manager, I had a guy start fudging my signature on things electronically. And so he started, he denied it. Oh, no, I didn't do that. I was like, yeah, pretty sure you put my signature on that document. I didn't do it. And I didn't load it in there. And you said it was loaded by me. He was like, no, you didn't. You can't prove it. I was like, really now? And we just went and took a look at version history. So that was a fun day. But yeah, so it makes stuff easy. You talk about approvals. So maybe, Caleb, we've got here what we call required approvers. Like, walk me through what's a required approver. I mean, I don't know anyone named policies and manuals.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to give the users the ability to have multiple approvers. And then also be able to designate who those approvers are.
Okay.
So generally, like, whenever you approve a document, say in like SharePoint, or any Microsoft like database that holds files, you'd right click, you say, I approve that document, without having to go through any sort of approval process, especially with the group. So that's what we really wanted to do, is we want to give the customers the ability to check that file in, share it with a group of people, get their input for that file.
Yeah.
Vote on, do we approve it? All of our documents are everybody that's asked to approve.
And this is only the folks that are like at that approved level of that document. So like maybe you need to have your, operations manager, your engineering manager, and document control has to sign off on it before it's approved.
Yeah. So the system, you set up the system to say, okay, if a document that's labeled with this approver is checked in, it's going to go ask whoever's designated, for
and then they just get a little alert on the cell phone. You get an email.
Oh yeah.
And from there, they can open the document, they can approve it, or they can even reject it.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if they reject it? I mean, does it just go into, Never Land, hope someone goes and checks that the status is rejected?
No, everybody gets an alert saying, not everybody, but all of the approvers and the person that submitted it for approval get an alert saying that this document was rejected. Here's the comments and the people that said the comments. And then it goes back into the pending state. So then it's essentially reset. The person tries again, or actually it goes into the rejected state, but
but it creates a real good opportunity to where folks that maybe aren't in the same room can still work together and communicate, but no one's having to, okay, new email. Let me get the names. Let me put a copy of that document in there. Oh, crap. Now I got the email copy. Now they each got their own copy. Then they're going to send their revised copies back to me, and neither one of them have the same idea.
Yeah.
So we're all working on just one document here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And it's, you know, a lot of every aspect of our system, we give the user the opportunity to do it, let's say, the easy way, or there's the more complex way that, you know. So what I mean by that is, just because we have a required
here, I'll share the screen. You can walk me through what you want me to do on one of these.
Oh, just talking about the required approvers, you know, we can have up to 4 people, but
let's take a look there.
We only need 1 person.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you don't have to
here
have 4
are
people.
the required approvers.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Dawn. I just don't know how many emails she gets when we do demos. Honestly, I just leave her there because I'm kind of curious when she's going to say something. I figure it'll be a good laugh, but she ain't said nothing yet.
Yeah. So you can see here, we've got required approver 1, required approver 2, required approver. We got up to 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can either fill those out, you know, and give 4 people, or you can just put 1 on there.
So we could just have a single person as the approver, and that's fine. And we could have all 4.
Yeah. And these are per, you know, document library. There's the never ending limit. You know, you could have a million, not a million. I got to be honest. You could have, let's say, I don't know, 1,000 approvers groups. Yeah. And just
so let's go ahead and check out a document here. Let's check it out. So while it's checked out, I'm making changes to it. Only I can see changes. Yeah. And let's go to the document details. And from document details, this is where I can change. I call them, when I'm doing the sales conversations, consulting, I call them approval paths. Just, it seems to be language people pick up on, but it's the same thing. So who are your required approvers? You could set this to any of them. Yeah.
You can have any number of options, any number of combinations. You know, you just have to let your team know if you're submitting a document of a certain kind for approval, which one do they need to select?
Sure. Okay.
And by default, ours is the library that they're in. So policies and manuals, you'd by default select policies and manuals.
And that's not anything that's necessarily baked into the system. That's all editable, but it tends to be a pretty good first start. Yeah. So now I've checked this document in, and I probably want to make some comments to myself. I use this feature personally a lot, actually. Yeah. You know, when you've got 20 different clients you're working with on a consulting project, you just forget why you made that last change 2 weeks ago. This is really helpful. So we could say here, updated the approval path, no content changes to the doc. And I'll check it in. Now, next time I go take a look at that document, I can go version history. Boom. I've got my comments right here.
And that is most certainly best practice.
It is really, really helpful. And the cool thing here, too, is this means no more document history block.
Yeah.
I hate filling those things out.
Yeah.
I really do. I hate filling those things out because it's like, what changes were made to this document? Oh, crap. I worked on it for 3 weeks. Dadgum. I don't know every little detail change I made. Yeah. I rewrote half the document. And then you got to kind of go through and figure all that out. Well, this way, as you're working through it, we got the log. It's there. And a really cool feature. I'm not going to show it. Man, I should have thought to test this beforehand. But you know how in Microsoft Word, you can do the compare and contrast with previous versions?
Yeah.
Since this is Microsoft 365, and that's Microsoft 365, you can tell it to review previous versions or draft versions and create a red line of the document for you. There's no need to redline it anymore, which I love, because not that you have to show the red line, but every once in a while you need to show a red line on the document. And the process we came up with in 2008, 2009, I first started putting some of these things together, was we put like a vertical bar to the left of the line. All we did was add like a left border to that 1 or 2 line of text or whatever it was. And that would signify that this was modified from the previous version. So then the next time I edited the document, I had to remove all the bars as I'm making my changes, put the borders on them, keep making changes. Anyways, it was a mess. It
Yeah.
was an absolute mess. So the fact that this can redline for you, oh, I think I'd have paid from my own pocket back then if I could have done this.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I show people whenever you demonstrate the version history is like you can pull up both documents and compare them side by side.
It's
there's
really
actually a
cool.
button that says compare.
Yeah, it is really cool. It is really, really cool feature. So, in case I can't pull it up right now just because one of the ways that we handle security in case I've got too many user accounts for different things going on, and I'm not certain that I'm logged in all the right things on here. Now, that's something that you probably, folks listening, probably never going to run into, because you know what? You're working on this on a work computer. You've got your work login.
Yeah.
You got one login.
Yeah.
Maybe you're logged in on the browser to your personal email or something like that, but you're not going to have any issues there. So, in any case, all right. What are some of the other benefits? Like, again, why is this easier than this?
Well, and along with the version history comes, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Whenever you have a document checked out, a working version or something like that, there's no risk of people that have like read-only access being able to see those working copies.
That is an awesome point.
Yeah.
So when we were
here, like, let's say you're in the process and you just saved your version that you've been working on for a week, and then somebody's like, oh, I need to go look at that version, but you'd put in some placeholder data or something like that.
Yep.
And then
I've done that before. Both ends of it. But so it's real cool. Right here, I see all of these. And now, if you're an approver on that library, you'll see these. But if you're an approver on the library, there's not a whole lot of you. And we can train you. Check and make sure it's approved before you download it and use it. But your average user who only has read or edit level access, they won't see this version 1.1. They won't see 2.1. They won't see 1.1. They won't see draft. They see the last approved version.
Yeah.
Like,
so if an auditor is like, how do we know that they're not using a version that's not been approved? Well, they can't see it.
They can't. They just can't get it. Okay. Well, we have people that love to create links on their desktop. I know I like links. I like shortcuts. Especially when you play the subfolder game and you got to go 30 subfolders in to find what you want. This is a really cool feature. I can copy a link. Hey, I copied a link. Now, new shortcut. What procedure was that? Let's say corporate governance manual. Sure. I'll rename that. Hopefully my spelling's good. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. In any case, now we've got a shortcut to that document only. Cool thing too, that shortcut won't work if the user account you're trying to access it with doesn't have access. So it still keeps all of your access security controls in place, and we don't need local files, which I think the IT guy, the quality guy, everyone likes that there's not any local files. And we do this with emailing docs too. You don't need to email the doc. Don't share the presentation with someone and wait to get it back. Share a dang link with them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what if we're wanting to work more collaboratively? What if, I'm like, Kyle, this is all great, but these are like templates. We're not working on templates. We're trying to build the sales presentation, and we want to work all together. I want to get my engineers on it. I want to get, our CEO on it. I want to get our sales guys in here. I want to get everyone in here to work on this presentation because we got a big meeting next week. Well, could we use like company file share for that? Do we have versions in here like we do over there? Like what's different? Oh, might help if I share the screen. Haha. All right. So we'll come here to file shares. We'll go, and we do have 3 of them in here. So you can set security on these differently as well. Like maybe production file share, you'd put like your job folders and stuff like that. We're not totally folder adverse. I'm just folder adverse for templates.
Controlled documents.
But how would we, how's this better?
So for this, you don't have document control. There's no approval process. There's no, check in, check out. It's just, you look at like the columns modified by, you can
Mhm.
see who last made changes, that
Yep.
kind of thing. It's a less formal working environment than, I'm checking this document in, I'm checking it out. And I think even now, Microsoft 365, if you open that up, I believe in the web version, or maybe even in a connected version of Word, you can actually work on it collaboratively.
Mhm.
So you can see who's in there. You can see, what they're doing, that kind of thing. So it
Which
is a true
it's
collaborative, work area.
No, I agree. I mean, it's really cool. Because I was doing this just yesterday. We're going through doing an internal audit for a customer, and we're working on it from their file share. And as I'm typing, I see two other people's cursors in there and what they're typing. I
Yeah.
mean, we're literally working on the same document at the same time, and we're hundreds of miles apart.
Yep.
I mean, it's cool. Actually, it was really neat. Is I was in here the other day, and as I'm working on an NCR, I could see where the other person was working on it. So, in case it was kind of cool stuff. We'll get there another day. I'll need to jump into NCRs today.
Yeah. It's
But
the
no,
file shares are, it's just the kind of the, I don't want to say Wild West. We use that term a lot. But yeah, it's uncontrolled documents,
yeah.
like,
I
and
mean, it really
when you're
is.
working on those types of documents, you have that mindset that, yeah, there's some, things that can go bad if you're not paying attention. All the really important stuff goes into the controlled documents. So
Now, one of the problems I said that you run into with a file folder based document file share, again, if you're one or two main company, I mean, it's just you doing it. It's not all that terribly important.
yeah.
But if you want to grow, it becomes important really quickly. Um, how do you handle security? I mean, what's better about security here than my old Active Directory groups, or just keeping a log of who I shared stuff with?
I mean, with this software, it's we have our security portal. I'm not sure how deep we want
Take
to
a
get
look
into
here.
this, but
No, we'll go through it because this is a really critical part of document control, especially when you move into things that get a little intellectual property associated with it. Like a lot of our Q1 customers, they've got monogram stuff that maybe they don't want everyone having access to, and maybe you're in a protected industry, different things like this. You got to make certain exactly who doesn't have access to things. So, kind of walk me through if I were a new customer. I mean, what's useful about this, Jimmy?
I mean, originally when we first designed this, we have this on a tenant that we allow access to. Like, we control all the security. So before, we were having to, we
This
had,
was our own Wild West.
well, and that's it. It's how everybody does it. You have a map,
Mhm.
you have different documents, you have different
Mhm.
files, and you have to track this stuff. If you don't
Yeah.
have a security map, then you don't have a security.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man, I'd actually forgot about and legitimately forgot about that. We did with these huge Excel spreadsheets, and we listed every single list in library, all the different levels access that were in it, and then we create the groups. And oh,
yeah,
I
and then
forgot.
every
That was
time
painful.
a customer would want to change access, we would get an email, and it was a whole big thing.
Hmm.
So,
We had to
and
update the security map. We had to go update the instructions or update the security. We had to verify it took, and then then email the customer back, and that was for any change they wanted to make to security. Those were some rough days.
yeah, and that's assuming you're doing it at like the folder level.
Correct.
If you're doing it at the document level, then
Oh gosh.
you're even even
Yeah.
crazier. But
Yeah.
so yeah,
So let's take a look at I'll pull it back up here. Let's look at the security portal. So I'm in here. I see email addresses. Why do I see email addresses?
so those are actual users that have Office 365 accounts.
Okay.
So basically what you would do is whenever you get into the software, then you start adding your employees. All you have to do is enter in their Office 365 account, and then you
Okay.
start assigning whatever permissions you want to give them. And you can see on there that we have descriptions for all the different permissions that we have, and they're generally broken down by category.
Which I love, because otherwise you look at this and this is where people freeze. This is where people say, I don't know what to do. I'm nervous. I don't feel comfortable doing it, because they don't know what is implied by checking that box.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah.
It just tells you. It's like, oh, all right, well, they can approve that stuff. If they can approve it, well, I might as well give them edit.
Well,
okay.
and it gives your company the complete ability to set the security on another site.
Yeah. And so it's awesome. It just makes it really, really easy. And you just go through and set what you want. And I've had folks ask, well, Kyle, couldn't we create like templates or profiles for these things? And I'm like, you can, but this is going to take me about a minute to fill out. And it takes about that long to use a template. And I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but I love how granular it gets. Because look, I used to work with it where I had like the Active Directory templates and all these type things and the policies for it. And the problem I'd run into is this guy so small business is going to run into this a lot. Is they're going to be like, well, this guy needs really specific access because he's kind of got a unique job. He doesn't fit the standard profile.
Yeah.
That happens a lot in small business. So you got total control here. Like, hey, this is the safety manager. He needs accident investigations. If you're, I don't know, let's say you're an accountant. You probably don't need access to accident investigations. We're going to have medical information in there. You want that protected. Same thing if we go to our file share. Look, a lot of companies use that executive file share. They give it to their HR team because they know they can protect it. Well, we definitely don't want to give that to them if that's what we're using it for. So it gives you total control over things. Which, again, especially considering, it might help if I put an email address in there. That's why it's not working. All right. So I'll go ahead and close that out. All right. Once someone gets added to security, what can they expect next? Like, you assign the security, what happens next?
So, I mean, once you add that person to the site, they get an invite letter, they clicked accept, they're in the site. And that's how,
so it's just you get an email, and then it's got a link. You follow the link, maybe a yes or an approve to log in, and that's about it. Are there any downloads they need to make? Like, I mean, or is it really just that simple? You just get an email.
Yeah, I mean, everything's web-based, and that's a question we get a lot is, like with new users or people that we're talking about getting into the site is like, well, where do I go to download the software? There's no software. It's all web-based. That means you can access it on your phone. You can access it, anywhere you want to. And there's just so much a lot of times, like I even, I forget, like, people don't even realize that you can use this on your phone in the field or, and like, that's something I forget to tell people, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I was getting my haircut with my boy here a few weeks ago, and customer called me. They were trying to get qualification for a new customer, and they needed a handful of documents that we talked about that morning, and they didn't know where everything was. So I was just like, I'll just pull it up right there, copy a link, drop it in my email, copy link, drop the email, copy link. Here you go.
Yeah,
life's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all web-based. We actually let me make sure I'm blanket in we actually discourage, downloads and offline stuff. And like I said, with OneDrive and things can get a little complicated. And we do offer the capability of linking OneDrive. That way, if you do want to work offline, that is a thing.
There are some times it's useful.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you do a lot of field work. You do a whole lot of field work. Maybe you need some offline data. But yeah, you'll see that little sync button right there. And that's how you get to it. Yeah. Oh, there's one other thing I meant to discuss I totally forgot about. So when you're in an audit, a lot of times that auditor is going to ask, can I get your document register? And then maybe they'll use some of their goofy term, but they want to see a list of all of your documents. They want to know their status. They want to know all these different things on them. So what you can do there is you can export that data out to Excel. So we'll do that right now. We're going to export this out to Excel. So it's going to ask if I want to save it as a query file. I'll say yes. And now we'll just open it up. Give it a second here to launch Excel. Yes, we want to enable that. And now I've got my document register that I can give my auditor. I didn't have to maintain it in Excel. I didn't have to create something new. Actually, before we were able to do this, I remember I used to go through and copy a link to all of the documents and put them in there. It was a mess. But it's automatic. So it's pretty cool. And it does. It has the link to it. Now, obviously, if your auditor is looking at this over email, he's not going to be able to use the link because he doesn't have an access to use it. But that's kind of a bad way to go through an audit anyways. You don't want to email your stuff outside the company like that. But if he's inside, say he's working from your computer, he can take a look at it. Look right here. You can look at it right like this right here. I even had one customer. This was maybe 3 years ago. They just didn't like opening the web browser. They didn't want to open the web browser. They're averse to opening the web browser. He's like, Kyle, there's got to be a way I can access all my documents without having to open up the web browser. It's like, yeah, there is. I can put it all in Excel for you. So we actually made him a big old workbook with nothing but, exports from these. The cool thing about it is it refreshes. So as you add new documents to the library, your Excel spreadsheet will update itself. And it's a one-way data connection. So it's not like if you type something over here, it's going to go back up there. It's just a one-way street. So
yeah, there's
kind of
all of the flexibility of OneDrive, and you can even do that with all of our lists. You can export them to Excel if you have other data connections, that kind of things.
Well, I do that pretty regularly on our QMS checkup. So for our fractional quality management clients, we do a monthly quality management checkup or QMS checkup. And I'll do that with a lot of them because I'll go through, especially if maybe they're falling behind on a few things, and I might export all of their training records and required training report out to Excel. And you can run a quick pivot chart on it and graph and, get a little better analysis of the data, something that's maybe non-standard, but you still got to figure out. So it works well. I mean, look, I know I'm biased in saying this, but honest to God, it's about the best document control software I've seen. I mean, and really all of this was designed and developed by quality managers for quality managers. That's one thing that we've done a little differently and uniquely at Texas Quality Assurance is we don't outsource the project to third-party developers who have no real-world experience. Yeah. We're not hiring all of the top coders and developers to write this revolutionary world-breaking software. No, we're sitting down saying, when we were a manager, what would we have wanted to make life easier?
Yeah,
then we set out to build it.
A good portion of this was, created while you were a quality manager. So
it was, yeah. Okay, so let me give a little background story on it. We'll probably wrap up after this, unless we got any other questions come in here. But all of this started because I started out in the IT. My degree is management information systems. I've done software development, networking, PC repair, everything, you name it, right? Tried running a web design business, small business networking before it. Figure you can't beat them, join them. So I started working for a small business doing systems administration, network management, basically the all-around jack of all trades IT guy. Pretty quickly started running out of work. Once you fix everything, you ain't got nothing left to fix or build. You ain't got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
So I started asking around, just trying to find another way I could add value. I had a wife, I had a kid, I got to do, I had a kid on the way actually. And I was like, well, I got to do something better than this. And they tossed health and safety at me. Health and safety turned into health, safety, environment. That turned into quality. I got involved with all of our insurance liabilities, and it just kind of expanded from there. And then we decided to go for our ISO certification. And so it was our brilliant idea to, in less than 12 months, go for 9001, quality, 14,001 environmental, and 18,002, which was the old British standard safety standard. The ISO 45,001's based off of 18,002, just about. In any case, we decided to go for all these in less than 12 months. And I was very quickly working 80, 90 hours a week. A couple of weeks, it was more than 100 hours. I mean, I'm pulling 12-hour days, 7 days a week, just trying to build everything and get this stuff figured out. It sucked. It was horrible. No quality of life at all. And so I told my manager, I was like, I've got to do something better here. And so I shut my door for 2 weeks, started developing tools, and I was able to get down to about 50, 60 hours a week. And the consultant we'd worked with saw what I'd done, wanted to know if this could be replicated, if I could. Actually, he wanted me to copy it. And so I told him, no, I ain't copying nothing. This is everything I developed is their property. It's intellectual property. I can't give it to you. I said, but I can recreate it differently at home for you. So I went back to working a whole bunch of hours a week, but I wish I had a picture. Gosh, I wish I had a picture of it. I had servers on my dining room table. And so for about a month, there was a couple of servers on the dining room table. But I did it, got it redeveloped, deployed it, basically built a whole network for a guy so that he could use it. They were on a entirely manual system. And that was the start of it. Up until 2016, all of our deployments were local to local servers. And since 2016, we've been working entirely in 365. And since 2021 is when we started providing it as a SaaS platform. So it's we've got it to where it's really, really, really affordable, man. I think about those first projects we got. Like, I mean, I'm grateful for it, but those companies have some deep pockets. It wasn't cheap.
And I was thinking about it earlier. Just with if you're making a bunch of document edits, just in like version history control, you're going to pay for the software.
Yes,
just the hours spent on version history control and keeping all that.
It's truly a no-brainer. I mean, honest God, it is just a no-brainer that it pays for itself. Now, again, I get it. Everyone's got cash flow, and you don't necessarily always see your employees boost performance as adding to the bottom line. But over a 3-month period of time, that employees boosted performance, I promise you, added to the bottom line. It just, whether you're able to get work completed faster, you're able to bring more in, your sales guys a little happier, things are faster, easier to find, easier to work with, happier customers, better reporting, you name it. It does pay for itself.
And a decent illustration of this is something I lived is like, as a CWI, certified welding inspector, most of my time was spent at one point essentially copying documents so that they could have they could be a manual portion, and then every change that was made or every comment that was done, you'd have to make that 3 times. And here I am, like a certified welding inspector doing that work.
That ain't cheap.
If we would have had software, we would have had something like this, I could have been freed up to do my thing, that I had this, it
would give you an edge. You can run circles around folks. I mean, it really is. But I mean, look, like any other tool, if you've got a good tool and you make good use of it, you can get a good return. And so that's what TQA Cloud is. So I'll finish up, talk a little bit about pricing. I'll show you the website, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up from there. But seriously, anyone that ever has questions about quality, regardless if you're a customer or not, regardless if you have even the slightest intent to purchase from us, I have never refused a phone call. I never refused to answer a question. We'd love to hear from you. So just email in. You can get me at kyle@texasqa.com. It's pretty easy. But let me go ahead and share that screen again real quick, and I'll walk you all through a few things. Might help if I there we go. Sorry. Again, I'm a web guy, not a web guy. I'm more of a quality guy. All right, so we'll take a look at the TQA Cloud software here. And we put all of our pricing nice and transparent on the website. Again, we were quality managers before. We are small business owners, operators. Let me tell you, I hate when folks hide their pricing. I don't want to go through 3 phone calls, 5 emails, and a presentation just to find out I can't afford you. So we don't want to do that to our customers either. So it's really simple. We've got a few packages here. First of all of these packages are full quality management software. We're not cutting you out on modules. We're not cutting you out on critical features. We've got an ERP, half the things on it, not ERP, CRM, where half the little check boxes are grayed out. We don't do that to you. We do have some premium features, but I'll get into that. So all of these perfectly functional, full quality management systems. The E1 entry package, this is ideal for that startup, that small business. You're a 2-3 man shop. You want to get things going and grow right. It's $100 a month. It's easy. Starter, $250 a month. You get up to 10 users. You get a little more data. You move up to our SMB package. This is where those premium features kick in. For document control, not a whole lot there, but really cool stuff, though, for everything else. So premium reports, check out the last webinar if you want to learn a little bit more about those. Our LMS quizzes is in there, and any other premium features we add are always going to be added to the SMB package. So this is $750 a month, but that's good for up to 75 users. Now, for folks that are like, well, Kyle, we got 300 employees. I don't think 75 users is enough for us. Probably is, actually. Most of those employees are working in the shop. They just need a shop account to access their documents. You're good. I used to be an IT guy. I know you're going to create a group account. Go ahead and do it. Then we've got our SMB Plus. This is good for up to 150 customers. It's 150 customers, 150 users, and includes all the same requirements. But that's where you can go to check out some details on it. Of course, we've got a ton of videos online on YouTube as well if you want to learn any more. And just check with us. We'd be happy to sit down on a demo, happy to talk with you about what you've got going on, like what problems you're facing and what solutions are going to be beneficial. So that's all I've got. Caleb, you got anything else to add before we wrap up here? Oh, you're on mute there.
Jeez. I think we're good. And thank you, everybody.
Quality geeks, not webinar geeks.
Tuning in. Yeah.
All right. You'll take care. Thank you. Oh, should give everyone contact info. Yes, texasqa.com. You can give us a call here at the office, 512-548-9001. I am kind of proud of that phone number, 512-548-9001. And you can email me personally, kchambers or Kyle at texasqa.com. Y'all take care. Have a great day.